Good evening and welcome to tonight's Undaunted, bringing to the news and top stories. I am Oyin Okbala. Let's begin. Today, on the executive summary of the news, a seemingly minor incident has once again peeled back the layers of a grand electoral deception. A 37-year-old woman who never registered to vote was issued a voter's card bearing her photo but with a different name. Her image had been taken from the National ID database and used to fabricate a false identity, revealing the regime's chilling ability to manufacture voters at will. This isn't a clerical error. It is evidence of a well-oiled fraud, an oil fraud machine that controls the outcome of elections before a single vote is cast. In La République du Cameroun, elections are not won, they are engineered, from the fraudulent 1992 elections to the manipulated results of 2018 and beyond. The pattern has remained consistent. Electoral charades dressed in democratic language, executed by compromised institutions like ELICAM and silently endorsed by foreign powers. Yet, while the political spare continues to rot under the weight of tyranny, a parallel betrayal unfolds within religious institutions once trusted to serve as moral beacons. High-ranking bishops such as Archbishop Andrew Nkot and Bishop Michael Bibi stand accused of abandoning their prophetic calling in exchange for political favor and material wealth. From lavish vehicles to discreet financial handouts, these so-called men of God have become enablers of injustice, shielding the regime while their communities bleed. Church-run schools and hospitals, once pillars of compassion and hope, are now seen as exploitative businesses, draining families while offering silence in the face of state violence. The values of justice, sacrifice, and service have been traded for power, privilege, and polished sermons that serve the oppressor. Amid this moral and political decay, the rumored importation of 250 luxury cars by Frank Biya ahead of the recent election has come to symbolize the grotesque excesses of a regime indifferent to the suffering of its people. While ordinary citizens face hunger, fear, and displacement, the ruling elite parades power with no shame. In response, a wave of consciousness is rising. From grassroots activists to these illusion believers, the call is growing louder. Boycott fraudulent elections, reject the manipulation of both ballot and pulpit, and stand for truth at all costs. As Dr. Mbonge and the voice of Ambazonia continues to declare, Ambazonia's liberation will not come through silence or submission, but through resistance grounded in moral clarity, truth, and unity. All of this would have on tonight's Undaunted, but first, let's get the prime headlines. Tonight on Undaunted, we'll start with the Ambazonian State Army in their resolve ambush the colonial army of August 25 in Mbonge. Also tonight, La République du Cameroun police officer caught in a brutal scuffle with a civilian, another act of unprofessionalism. Tonight, we'll take a look at another French-Cameroun armed thugs killing community leaders in Nkot. Also, Mbonge rose a legacy of neglect, 43 years of Biya's rule, and the Unholy Union impact. Meanwhile, on the African scene, report reveals rising tensions between Malian troops and Russian advisors and all of the security struggles in Mali, while on the foreign scene, Trump use of federal force sparks controversy, energizes base ahead of elections. Now let's get the news in full briefings. The Amazonian State Army's recent ambush on La Republic de Cameroun military in Boyo on the 25th of August has resulted in significant human and material casualties for La Republic de Cameroun forces. This attack is the latest in a long line of clashes between the Amazonian State Army and the La Republic de Cameroun government forces. The Amazonian struggle for independence has been ongoing since 2016, with the conflict escalating in 2017. The Amazonian State Army has been fighting for the creation of an independent Amazonian state. This war continues with both sides suffering heavy losses. The recent ambush in Boyo is a testament to the ongoing intensity of the conflict. While specific casualty numbers are not available, historical data suggests that such clashes often result in significant losses on both sides. For example, in 2021, in November, Amazonian State Army neutralized 13 French soldiers in an ambush, while the colonial army reportedly killed 25 ASA near Nkot. President Paul Biya's insistence on pursuing a military solution has been criticized for exacerbating the conflict. Human rights groups and international observers have called for a genuine dialogue to address the underlying issues driving the war. However, the colonial government stance remained resolute, with President Paul Biya prioritizing a military victory over negotiation. The conflict has resulted in significant humanitarian consequences, including thousands of deaths and displacements of hundreds of thousands of people. The military option pursued by the French government has also led to allegations of human rights abuses, including indiscriminate shootings, abductions. Also, in 2018 November, indiscriminate shootings by La Republic de Cameroun occupation forces in Bamenda left scores injured and numerous people abducted. The international community has expressed concern over the escalating violence and humanitarian crisis. There have been calls for a peaceful resolution to the conflict, with some advocating for dialogue and others supporting the colonial government's right to maintain law and order. But so far, none of this has happened. The Amazonian State Army's ambush on the French Cameroon is a stark reminder of the ongoing conflict and the need for a genuine dialogue to address the underlying issues. The humanitarian consequences of this war and the conflict so far are there, and a peaceful resolution is essential to prevent further suffering and further loss of lives. Bryce Mbeseha, welcome to tonight's Undaunted.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So while while Amazonians are on the other side, or let's even start with the government of President Scuffle at saying, let's come to the table, let's sit, let's dialogue, call us, and let's have this talk once and for all. War is still going on, fights are still going on, militaries of the Amazonian State Army and of course the French Cameroons are still fighting. But at the end of the day, those who bear the brunt are usually those, the grass, the people who are just there waiting for the peace or waiting for the freedom to come eventually. But until then, the fight would continue. We just got this information. And so far, what would you say about this?
Well, I think once you look at this, what is going on now, this is 2025, this is August. We must look at it in the context of what is going on in the whole of what's so-called the Republic of Cameroon, politics-wise, because the problem is a political problem. And let us be reminded that facts are facts. Facts don't lie. Facts don't lie. And because facts don't lie, I like us to look at it from that angle, that this crisis started in 2016. That was towards the end of a presidential mandate of 7 years. That was to end in 2018. And so that mandate is come and gone. They are preparing for another mandate to start October 12 or sometimes after that date. So this struggle is covering 3 election mandates of the head of state or whoever leads Cameroon Republic. And for them to understand where we are and what is going on right now, they need to be reminded of facts that don't lie. And that will start with Mr. Paul Biya. Again, I said this one started in 2016. Let us be reminded that in 2017, sometimes in November, President Paul Biya came out and said they were going to wipe out the rebellion within 2 weeks. The 2 weeks have transitioned into 9 years. That has not succeeded. In 2017, that was in the last going mandate, they told us that there were barely 2 cubes of sugar that would melt within a short period of time. They should be reminded that the fact is that the 2 cubes of sugar have not yet melted. Then they went into a new cycle, another presidential mandate cycle that started in 2018. And the same President Paul Biya, as the leader of Cameroon, did a number of things at the beginning of his mandate. In 2019, he purportedly called a Grand National Dialogue. That is a fact. Which Grand National Dialogue came on solutions they thought would work. That was in 2019. What did they do specifically? They talked about regional autonomy. They talked about the DDR. They talked about reconstruction. Those are the facts that came out of the 2009 National Dialogue. In things stopped. 0 to what? Absolutely. And so, what is the reminder to Yaoundé that come October, whoever is choosing again to represent Cameroon or to replace Paul Biya, either alive or dead, is going to face this problem head on. Because the DDR did not work. If it had worked, we would not be having ambassadors still beating them and killing them. What do you call it? The reconstruction has not worked. If it worked, we'll not be finding them today. I saw them as late as last evening, still hovering somewhere in Manfe, somewhere in Kupe Madengumba, in Guti, clearing bushes for schools to start. Schools have not started for 7 years, 10 years, almost 10 years today. And so it is a reminder again to them that facts run with. Ambazonian government has been waiting and waiting on the negotiation table. Because it has been said and recommended as a fact that the parties must go to the negotiation table, address the root causes of the problem, and then find solutions to their problems. We have been waiting forever, for more than 5, 6, 7 years. The Ambazonian government has been waiting. And the Republic of Cameroon has refused to be honest, has refused to show up. There have just been a bunch of dishonest people. Ambazonia is waiting for them. After October, whoever replaces Mr. Paul Biya shall be able to come to the conference table. And that is where we will talk peace along with justice. Because there can be no peace without justice. There can be no peace or justice without truth. That is what all these things indicates to them. That they have failed in every aspect of the thing. Again, repeating myself, the 2 cubes of sugar, which is a fact the promise would melt, has not melted. Again, repeating myself, and quoting Mr. Paul Biya, the 2 weeks he gave to completely neutralize Amazonia have become 9 years. They have not done it. And again, Their grand national dialogue has not worked by even the single, by whatever standard of imagination. It does not work. The DDR they put out there has not worked. That's why we still have fighters. The reconstruction has not worked. That's why today they are still begging for schools to resume. And so that's what it is all about. The Ambazonian army that was a ragtag army in 2017, 2016, has become an army to reckon with. An army that can bring down tanks. If they had helicopters, will bring them down, but they have none. A ragtag army that can kill generals, can kill colonels, train even in France. And again, and again, talking about this war thing. You should be reminded that, as a matter of fact, Mr. Wilbur had reminded them in 2019 that when the people will rise, 2017, I'm sorry, that when the people will rise, a combination of the French army plus Cameroun and beyond will not defeat Ambazonia. That's a fact. We will not be defeated militarily. The only option left, the only thing which is reasonable, is to come to the negotiation table honestly, not dishonestly. Address the truth of what we're fighting for. Address the peace that we are looking for. And then, along with it, the justice that will make everybody walk away peacefully and happy. That's what it is about. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Barrister Mbeseha. Meanwhile, the recent scuffle between French Cameroun police officers and their civilians has sparked outrage highlighting the unprofessionalism and brutality exhibited by some law enforcement officials. Such incidents raise concerns about the conduct of La Republique de Cameroun security forces in Ambazonia, with many questioning their unprofessionalism and adherence to human rights standards. The deployment of these forces has been met with resistance, and their action have been criticized for exacerbating tensions in Ambazonia with repeated acts of unprofessionalism. There are growing demands for accountability and reform within the colonial security forces to address allegations of abuse and ensure that personnel are adequately trained to handle situations without resorting to excessive forces. Just take a look at the video. Can we just have a full coverage of the video, please, technicians? All right, now this will make you really a very funny one there. But so you would want to ask, the caliber of personnel deployed to Ambazonia has been a subject of debate, with some arguing that their actions are more akin to thuggery than law enforcement, just like you saw in the video. The incidents involving La Republique de Cameroun office policers underscores the need for improved training, accountability, and oversight to prevent such incidents. Barrister Mbeseha, can imagine when people are not scared of their security operatives attached to a particular region. Can imagine the kind of thuggery that is being dealt with on a regular basis. In some climes, when you see a police, you would want to respect them, but here you have it. It's even being carried and He's not even able to fight. And it's just a very funny video, if you ask me. What would you say about these kind of incidents? It's just a very funny one.
Well, I think the saddest thing that I feel personally as an individual is to call those people security agents, whatever thing description they want to have. In short, these people are a bunch of thugs in uniform and armed to brutalize the people. But the interesting thing is that they are not even able to do it. Look at that civilian in this small t-shirt. This guy who calls himself a policeman is unable to bring him down, in spite of all the force that he has. And so that is where we find ourselves. And then when we say security forces, what are we really talking about? Cameroon has no distinction between a policeman, a gendarme, a military guy called B, a regular military guy, an Air Force guy, a custom officer, a prison guard. They all become security people. And they fight to become that. If he asks, what is that guy fighting for? What is the cause of that? That's on the highway. These are just talks. Where on earth do security people engage civilians in fights in order to enforce whatever law they call it? If they had any training called training, they would not be doing that. That guy in police uniform, he probably has gone to a police school, but did he receive the training that was required? I think he didn't. And I've used this opportunity, I've said it before. The so-called, they started, whatever uniform he wears there, a good number of them start from the police school in Motengene. The police school in Motengene was never the creation of Yaoundé. The police school in Motengene was the creation of the West Cameroon government in 1960, in June. And so the school has fallen prey to what we have, where they sent people there to train their thugs, to adopt people and steal from them, to extort money from people. Whose role is to investigate. Beating people, extorting people by force is not investigation. It's pure extortion. And why do they do this? They do this because they have guns. They do this because they will go unpunished. Nobody will even investigate them. Remember how many times we've been here and we've been told that somebody was shot in Bamenda in Biya and killed with official guns. And the answer, they all say investigations are underway. Whose investigations nobody ever comes out with the result. That guy who shoots with a gun and calls himself Amba Boy or just a talk. If there were proper investigation, you find that the guns they use are from the military, they're from the police, they're from the gendarmes, they're from the B. Nobody investigates because they will self-incrimination. They don't want to incriminate themselves. And so what is going on there, as I said earlier, facts don't lie. Who on earth in a modern society will believe factually that that's a policeman and that's how his work is supposed to be performed? Factually, nobody will agree to that. That's talks. That's talkish behavior. And so it's unfortunate that we find ourselves where we are, where gangsters are recruited with taxpayers' money, deployed in the field with the protection of the state to do what they like, kill people if they would choose, extort money if they want, and go free. Is that what we can call a state? That's a state not even by name. That is not a state, even by imagination. But in the Republic of Cameroon, that is a state. Because they will tell you we have a general ABC, we have Commissioner 4 Division 20 stars sitting up there taking money from the state and being our boss. That is not where we should belong. That's where we should live. We're not supposed to be there. But that's, in fact, that's I don't know what you call it, an armed robbery state. That should never have happened to us. As I just said, what a police school that we created to train our policemen. The basic training with the police, our police force in the first place, they didn't carry guns. They carry batons because they are a civilian force. They are civilian people who could use his baton to stop a fight, who could use his whistle to stop a vehicle that is trying to escape. And so you find this guy, they take them there, give them crash courses of how to steal, deploy them into the field, give them weapons and guns, some of which they sell for money, some of which they use for their own personal gain. And so that is unfortunate. That's not what should have been. That's not what should be in a civilized modern state 2025. That's the reason why we fight, and we must fight on to her. If somebody describes this as not being in her, think twice. Think twice. Because where do you escape to? Escape to the government. Where do you escape to? If you're standing on the corner of the road and somebody is fighting with you, the police themselves are fighting with the civilians, then who will arrest you? Interestingly, in this instant case, there's a civilian arresting the police. The civilian guy has arrested the police. In fact, they put come and pulling him down. He's literally a prisoner to the community. And so it's unfortunate, very, very unfortunate, very, very lamentable. And again, we should not have been here, but we are here. Why? We must ask ourselves, what do we do to God to have this terrible punishment? It is punishment from God. I believe, this is my opinion, that 50 years of suffering is more imprisonment for us. Let the very God deliver us from this eternal damnation. Let him excuse us for our mortal sins if we committed one, to find ourselves where we are. This is not where we should be. This is not where we will be, and we will fight until we get out of this jungle. Over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Barrister Mbeseha, for that. They are really thugs and really not security agents. The reign of terror by armed militias, funded and directed by French Cameroon's political figures, has claimed another civilian life, while armed men backed by some rulers in the Biya regime continue their illicit operations uninterrupted. Nwangang Mechelian, a young man who dedicated his time to do the work the colonial government has consistently neglected, was abducted and brutally beaten to death in Nkot on the 27th of August 2025. Many have considered this cold-blooded murder a device of the colonial administration's strategy to prevent the likelihood of any possible protest in Ambazonia following French Cameroon's upcoming presidential elections. Nwangang Megalian murder is being widely considered a direct consequence of a calculated political strategy, much like the government's use of herdsmen in Nigeria. The colonial administration is actively employing and alarming militias to dismantle any collective force that stands in the way of its hegemony. With crucial elections approaching in October, the objective is to silence and oppress the population, ensuring no resistance can challenge their power. Unfortunately, while French Cameroon's officials secretly recruit imposter Ambazonian fighters, the occupational state to mask their acts has turned on the innocent civilian population, falsely accusing and terming them terrorists and cessationists before unjustly, brutally ending their life. The pattern of violence is evident across Ambazonia, where the business of colonial political figures having their own personnel armed forces thrives. In the Savannah zone, a prime example is Ngala Gerald, a politician from Undo, whose armed thugs were responsible for planting a bomb to kill their own people during the 11 February festivities. These are the very forces empowered by French Cameroon's political stakeholders to carry out their bidding, yet the local population bears the consequences of their acts. While the media attempts to spin a direct narrative, the truth of Megalian's death is simple and brutal. This native of Nkot, who lived in Douala, had returned to his community with a new mission for sewing planks, taking the initiative to organize youths to build a local bridge and repair their terribly neglected roads. For this act of selfless service, he was targeted allegedly by Biya's military talks and beaten to death. The cover-up was swift and amateurish as they sold a lie to media outlets. Media outlets are circulating false reports claiming he was an Ambazonian fighter. You will pause here and ask, will an Ambazonian fighter build a bridge? And why kill him if he's building a bridge? Well, an acquaintance to the disease drew ABC's attention to an important detail. The clothes he was wearing in a photo of his corpse on the ground are completely different from those seen on him in a video. A German piece of evidence that reveals the lies being sold to the public by neighboring La Republique de Cameroon's army thugs. These fearful informants confirmed that the disease was of civilian, a community leader who simply wanted to help his people. The Nkot community is still really unaware of the exact circumstances of what transpired. As of the moment of this report, the armed men who operate with complete impunity, killing leaders like Magdalene and then branding them as Amber Boys to justify their heinous acts are yet to be held accountable. The informant insists that the world must be made aware of the atrocities. Meanwhile, the people of Ambazonia are condemned to a life of constant fear, knowing such incidents are not anomalies but are horrifying and a regular occurrence. Barrister Mbeseha, will an Amber boy come together, or in quotes, what they tag as Amber fighter, come to build a bridge in the open in broad daylight? And even if he was an Amber fighter, was he supposed to be killed in that manner? Very sad
They are
incident
not
here.
supposed to be killed. Could they call themselves Amber Boys, come together to build a bridge, build a school, or build a house? Of course, why not? That's part of the community development that is part of our development in Amazonia. What is wrong? If they are building a bridge, cutting wood to build a bridge, they're doing it because there is no bridge there. Government has forgotten about them. If they don't give them a bridge, they will build one for themselves. And what's the crime? That he had an engine saw or something like that to make a footpath. But again, we can look at that incident just as one of the thousands, just as a reminder that a lot is gone wrong. We can analyze it looking back. Again, I feel like the facts don't lie. These people have just, in fact, for all their, since 1961, they have taught us and told the world that any resistance to them, you are a terrorist. If you are if you are unresisting with your words, you are a terrorist. This is not coded language for them. It's language that they used officially, even in official circles. In 2003, we have something we call Communication 266. That was free at Banjul of African rights of the people. There are people who went there, their actions, which has started this 2003. They sent Nkot, who is the prime minister, the one representing them there. And what was their defense? One of the things they wrote there was, well, they catch you there and take them to Yahoo to try them there. They come and arrest you when you are sleeping. What was Nkot's response to that action? Officially into the court, he told them all those people are terrorists. It was then the SCNC. He said that SCNC, they are all terrorists for resisting us. This was before the African Commission on People's Rights. What did the public is in the records? Court asked Mr. Nkot a single question. Do terrorists go to court? And they said, terrorists don't go to court. If the SCNC is right now before us in the court, you don't call them terrorists. And they came out with the ruling that they came. Did that dissuade them from such vile language? It did not. They've continued. And again, as I've said, when we're analyzing the we look at it in the context of what before. Since 2016, 2017, the killing of innocent civilians has become a legal offense. Whether they can be named Amber, yet And I asked, was it this week or something? And where did they get the license for Amba? Who gave them that license to kill? I say, look at it in the context of what has gone on. We have talked about the destruction of several villages and towns. When they threw bombs on those villages, they knew that they were civilians. Were they fighting anybody? No. They wanted to kill anybody who was ever sympathizing with the. Of course, it is recorded. How many villages, thousands were burnt? How many were? When they went in Garbo and put to go innocent women and children, and then pretend to burn their corpses. Civilians. When they were not carrying arms. The only crime they committed was that they are called Amba. They are part of the Anglophone community. That must be eliminated. That's what they did, publicly. They went to Biya and kill people in their dozens and carry them in pickup trucks. Why? Because they were called Amba. Has never ever been held accountable. They didn't do that. When they recruited Moja to go down the streets in Soko and Boya and catch pregnant women, take them to the military terminal and jail them, they knew the pregnant woman was a civilian. She was not a crime. What was her crime or their crimes? That they once knew somebody was called Amba. For just knowing somebody who is called Amba, your punishment is death. And so it's a chain. You cannot analyze this in isolation. When the two was he carrying guns? He carried no gun, and we can cite 1,001 examples. This is a rogue state that has criminalized a people by their name. It's like say we can localize it and say, well, somebody is called Wondo, and Wondo man must be killed. Once they bear the name Bamileke, they eliminate you. Once they are called a Widow man, you are dead. And so this is collective punishment, collective elimination of a race, which is known as genocide. Genocide is not killing hundreds of people. It starts with one man. It starts with one single person. Hundreds and thousands will die. So what happened to that young man is he cannot say it is not genocide. No. He was just killed. They told he was Amba. Amba to them are a people resisting them. And then once that attack is on you, the punishment for having that attack is that you are dead. No question asked. And so that is where we find ourselves. That is where we are in this world of injustice. That's where we find ourselves before people who once called neighbors, people who once called brothers and sisters, people who once, the place where we once called home. Should we continue to bear this tough without questions asked? To be arrested without resistance? To be adopted for wherever you are without further question? No. This guy they killed, like many others, their deaths are not going to go unanswered. Somebody will be held accountable sooner or later, but it would happen. And so we feel sorry for that family and for other families that have suffered the same treatment, but we encourage them. Resistance is the answer. Justice will come with resistance, because no problem goes on forever. They have realized by now, as per my last analysis, that 10 years, almost 9 years into the conflict, they have not solved it. At the end of the day, when they will come, which I think they would, and we'll go to that conference table, shall we bring this people back to life? Certainly not. But shall something be done to vindicate their death? I think it would. Over to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Barrister Mbeseha. Away from the humanitarian stories, back into the basic community stories, let's start with the roads. The state of the roads in Mbonge, a town in the Atlantic zone of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, is a stark reflection of the neglect and mismanagement that has plagued the region for decades. the legacy of the union between the former British Cameroons and La Republic du Cameroun in 1961 has been one of neglect and underdevelopment, with the roads in Mbonge being a prime example. The roads in Mbonge have been in a deplorable state for years, with potholes and erosions making it difficult for residents to access basic amenities. The lack of maintenance and investment in road infrastructure has had a significant impact on the local economy, making it challenging for farmers to transport their goods to markets. For instance, the poor state of the road has led to increased transportation costs, which are then passed on to consumers, further exacerbating poverty in Ambazonia. The 43-year-old rule of President Paul Biya, has done little to improve the situation. Despite his government's claim of investing in infrastructural development, the roads in Mbonge remain in a state of disrepair. The neglect of the region's infrastructure is a testament to the colonial government's lack of prioritization and investment in Ambazonians areas. According to reports, the government has allocated significant funds for road construction and maintenance, but the impact is yet to be felt or even seen. Of course, it's part of the election gimmicks. The union between the former British Cameroons and the French Cameroon has been described as an unholy union due to the perceived neglect and marginalization of Ambazonian areas. The state of the roads in Mbonge is a reflection of this neglect, with the town's infrastructure suffering due to lack of investment and maintenance. The people of Mbonge and the surrounding areas deserve better, and it is time for the colonial government to prioritize their needs and invest in their region's infrastructure. The state of the roads in Mbonge is a stark reminder of the neglect and mismanagement that has plagued Ambazonia for decades. It is time for the colonial government to take action and invest in their Ambazonian infrastructure, prioritizing the needs of local population or supporting the people's fight for independence. The people of Mbonge actually deserve better, and Ambazonians in a whole, they deserve even better. Rice and Mbeseha, roads are here, the rains are here. So for so many of the bad roads that we are calling, it's not like they were not bad in January, February, or even March. It's just that it was dry season from the reports that we are getting from the home front. And so it's easier for people to manage dust than to manage flood. So that's why it's more like we have more of the bad road reports now. So it's not like they were not bad, but it's just that it's so terrible right now because of the rains that people can't access the roads to the farm. They can't have access to the roads to church or to markets or to anything. And so the few cars that can go through the difficult route would have to more like extort even more, increase their fares, and it goes back to the people. And so it looks like this suffering is rolling over and over and over and over from one condition to another terrible conditions. And it's going to only end when Ambazonia is free, right?
Yes. Again, I've said this many times. We have a big problem in as Ambazonians. We never read the fine print of these fraudsters. These people just want to deceive us. You see, what you see there called Mbonge Road, there has never been a road there. You see that river flowing there. Where is the bridge that was there? So for first, the river did not come in yesterday. The rivers have been sitting there forever and ever since the beginning of time. They never dug any road there. And so in the face of difficulties, they say, okay, we are going to rehabilitate a road. You don't rehabilitate a non-existent road. Again, the context of what we are analyzing. These people are fraudsters. The people who don't tell the truth anywhere. In 2010, after their so-called Grand National Dialogue, they told the world that they had raised a lot of money by themselves and aid and loans from foreign partners. To do what? To reconstruct the northwest and southwest by their own language. And so 2019 till today is already 6 years. Where is the reconstruction money for call it Mbonge that we're talking about? Where is their own money? If they had to reconstruct anything there, they would have at least been able to road. Road is not graded. If somebody came out there to get a piece of wood to lay a wooden bridge there, they will shoot you and call you Amba and kill you. And so these are people who lie to themselves. They lie to the world. If they had done this, Mbonge is just one who have analyzed all these things before. Go to Bamenda. I've said this many times before here, where they have been preaching reconstruction, where the ambassador of France has come there with his 2 legs and promised money from Elysee, from President Macron, billions to reconstruct Bamenda. Let me just deal with Bamenda. If Yaoundé is not credible, and they are not, are the French ambassadors even credible? No. Can we say that the visit of the French ambassador to Bamenda has changed anything in terms of reconstruction? Zero. So these are perpetual liars who think that they can tell anything and go free. But facts don't lie. Facts remain facts. And so it is not just Mbonge. Mbonge is just symbolic of the whole system. But Mbonge is also very important because Mbonge is the headway, is the road to Indian, which produces all the oil and the money in the country. If they don't have to go to Indian, we'll pass through Mbonge. If they're minded just to give Indian their own share, just for the sake of paying back their own share of whatever they extract from there, Mbonge would have been able to benefit from it. Have they done it? Zero. Are they still piping oil and gas from there? Of course. Are they still getting money out of it? Of course. So why do they have to go through this? But again and again, they still. But what a problem with our own Ambazonian brothers and sisters placed over there, who themselves have become criminals by implication. Over the whole southwest or northwest, there's no road anywhere. You remember last we were talking about a river carrying away whole Reverend Father, a priest. Because there's no hammock, there's not anything to cross there. This is Nkupe Manebuba. There's no road there. I've seen all the things. There's no road to anywhere there. But our people will come out. Oh, no, there's everything going there. Let us contribute more and give Mr. Paul Biya to become president. This is madness. It is that very Nkupe Manebuba where something called Nguti subdivision is found. In fact, that river carrying away the priest is in Nguti subdivision. I saw them with the axes going to fair trees growing in government high school Nguti. And to the elites of the Nguti boys and men who are in Yaoundé, we don't need to call their names. They are there. To them, there's no problem going on. Why? Because they live within the confines of Yaoundé. To Mr. Nguti was supposed to be from Indian. There's no problem. As long as if he wants to come there, he will come with armored cars. You'll probably come in a helicopter. Wouldn't make any difference to him. Zero difference. And so these are people that should never have been trusted. We'll try to tell them. They failed us. We should never trust them anymore. We didn't join La République de Cameroun, if we did join, for them to come and dig roads for us. We had our own equipment pool. We could dig our own roads. We could fix our own streets. But what did they do? They stole all what we had, physically and carried it away in plain daylight. They have never returned those machines. And our streets are going rotten. What did we do to merit this? Why did we vote to go to prison? Is there a free person who will vote to go to and prison himself? No reasonable person would. And so this is the problem. Poor Mbonge, poor Ambazonia, because what happened in Mbonge is a replica of what is going on everywhere in Womb, in Mamfe, in the BLM, in wherever you can find there is the same story. The story of a failed system. The story of outright deceit. The story of deception of a people who once thought that they could trust a neighbor. Again, by way of example, no woman, no man marries to be in prison. Marriage was intended to be a healthy place where the two partners will give birth to children. They will bring them up to a better world than what they were. But once you got into a marriage and found out your husband has become so abusive, or your wife has become so intolerable, the best answer is for you to separate and go your ways. When you go your ways, you might find another man or another husband to marry. You may find another woman to marry. But if you don't find one, it will be better for you to remain unmarried than to be in a bad marriage. Over to you.
And definitely, a bad marriage will definitely make you suffer. So I get where that is coming from. Barrister Mbeseha, you know that would not leave without going to the voice of Ambazonia. And so, in the voice of Ambazonia today, a recent incident in Yaoundé has shed new light on the depth of electoral fraud in La République du Cameroun, reaffirming long-standing suspicion that the country's elections are not democratic exercise, but carefully orchestrated schemes. In this one, Dr. Mbonge highlighted a 37-year-old woman who had never registered to vote was shocked to receive a voter's card bearing her photograph, but under a false name. Her image had been lifted from the National ID database and paired with fabricated identity details, effectively enrolling her in an election she never consented to join. This is not merely a bureaucratic error. It is a deliberate manipulation of the electoral system. The regime's access to and control of the national ID system allows it to fabricate voters, issue duplicate cards to loyalists and suppress opposition voices, ensuring outcomes are predetermined long before ballots are cast. These are not system flaws. They are deliberate features of a fraudulent design. This pattern of manipulation is not new. From the contested 1992 multi-party election through every subsequent national vote, elections in the Cameroon have been marked by ballot stuffing, voter suppression, and complete disregard for transparency. Institutions like ELICAM and the Constitutional Council, instead of ensuring fairness, have become enablers of fraud, routinely dismissing over 96% of complaints. Meanwhile, foreign observers often serve as window dressing, posing for photos at polling stations and issuing vague reports while ignoring clear signs of systemic rigging. Their silence raises issues, questions about complicity as they benefit from deals and diplomatic access under a regime that crushes dissent. The recent voter card scandal is not an isolated case. It is a glimpse into a broader machinery of deception. For Ambazonians, this reinforces a hard truth. True change will not come through fraudulent actions or international endorsement, but through self-determination, resistance, and the unwavering pursuit of justice and liberation. But let's get the clear words of Dr. Mbonge.
This is the voice of Ambazonia. Truth in resistance, clarity in crisis. Today is Thursday, August 28th, 2025. Fellow Ambazonians, greetings. An ordinary incident in Yaoundé has once again exposed how far the fraud machinery of La République du Cameroun extends. A 37-year-old woman who has never registered to vote was handed a voter's card. The card carried her picture, but under a different name. Neighbors confirmed that the card was issued as if she were on the register. In reality, she had never been part of it. Her image was taken from the National ID database and paired with a false identity. This is proof that the electoral lists are not merely flawed, they are engineered. The regime holds absolute control over the National Identity Card database. With this power, it can generate voters out of thin air by pairing real pictures with fake names, multiply cards to allow loyalists multiple votes, while others are denied theirs, and predetermined outcomes by inflating or suppressing lists long before a single ballot is cast. The system does not malfunction, it operates exactly as designed. Elections here are not counted, they are manufactured. Let us not forget, in 1992, Cameroon's first multi-party election was denounced as fraudulent, yet Paul Biya was declared winner in 2004, 2011, and 2018. Biya's so-called landslides came amid intimidation, ballot stuffing, and manipulated registers. In 2007, parliamentary elections, some received multiple cards, others none. Even the voting ink could be washed off. Today, LACAM and the Constitutional Council remain anything but impartial, dismissing over 96% of fraud complaints. The pattern is clear. Elections are staged performances, with results decided long before citizens enter the polling booth. Interestingly, foreign diplomatic missions often pay lip service visits to polling stations for photo opportunities. They smile for cameras, release carefully worded statements, and then ignore the true indicators of fraud that Ambazonians live with every election cycle. It appears as if they are not neutral observers, but silent partners. After all, these same powers benefit from a corrupt system, gaining contracts, influence, and stability at the expense of truth and justice. The latest case of a woman's face appearing on a card with someone else's name is not an exception. It is routine. It is proof that elections in Cameroon have never been free, fair, or credible. From 1992 until today, every so-called election has been less about the will of the people and more about the will of the regime. These claims justify our long-held position in La République du Cameroon. There is no election, only selection. And let Amazonians not think that change will come from international observers or diplomatic missions. No, change will come only from our legitimate government and from our self-defense. This has been the voice of Ambazonia. Truth in resistance, clarity in crisis.
Barrister Mbeseha, this is the first part of the first audio would handle today. First off is the fact that electoral fraud is not new to us, but taking database from the ID and turning them into voter card is a different form of fraud. Are you shocked?
Well, let us have this clear before we make our analysis. We have set time without number here that will have nothing to do with elections in Cameroon. But it doesn't mean that we are not aware. We are aware of what is going on there. Why we don't take part when changes that go on there would affect us. That's the reason why we even venture to analyze any of the things. And so what Dr. Mbonge has just said, I can summarize it to simply mean that we are playing the role of the Good Samaritan. We're just being good Samaritans to help them, for those of them who still reason, to understand that their system is a total failure. Because what they call LACAM, from LACAM to Constitutional Council or anything attached to elections, is fraudulently designed and fraudulently executed to go down only to one thing, one answer. The people who shall win elections, call elections, are the people who are carefully selected to fit a profile of what they want their system to be. That's the short and simple of it. Because you say they have their law, they have election law based on what we know. They are supposed, the election thing, the election is supposed to publish the list of voters. They're supposed to have published it, the national list. But they refused to do it. Not by error, not by design. Because they put on that list, and finding that thing there, would say, no, this is not my name, this is my name. Picture, this is not my name, yeah. And then they will realize that they could correct it. But they will not do it. They have now come out, people are discovering that is just one of the millions, maybe, who's having that type of problem. Carefully designed to keep you out, not even for you to vote. No. They know they want to limit the number of voters. Because if you go there and it's not your name, with your picture, you can never vote with the picture. You will not just vote. And so they reduce the number of people who could be opposed to them. And they tell you they are now have 8 million voters. Usually they are only by 3, carefully choosing to pick the person they want to win the so-called contest. And so That is what it is. It is carefully designed and fraudulently executed to fit whatever thing they want. Should that ever be, in fact, Cameroon is so peculiar in the world, so peculiar that they even find, I saw something on Jeune Afrique, that's a French language paper, newspaper, that came out to describe the opposition as the most stupid opposition in the world. Knowing all this that is done in advance, does any reasonable person there can win anything they call election there if you are not selected in advance? Certainly not. Certainly not. And so that's why we distance ourselves from it. But because we take note of what is going on there, we analyze what we've just done. For example, I just said in the earlier segment that look, we're waiting for whoever should emerge as a selected leader to replace Paul Biya or to revive him from his grave to face us with what we've just analyzed. Because the facts don't lie. They will show that whoever was sitting there before Paul Biya or who was sitting there after Paul Biya will meet an Ambazonia on the conference table. Because what we did before October 2025 has failed. They will realize, as we've said, and as the international community has said, that the best solution to the problem is the conference table for the condition, meet the right parties, and negotiate the way out. That's the only reason why we look at the elections. The elections are meaningless. They are fraudulent. Those of us who have been involved in it, we can say mea culpa and apologize for having belonged to such a jungle of elections. We have said before, let them prove us wrong. They never had any elections in Cameroun since 1960. They had independence 1st of January 1960 without elections, without even a constitution. And so how did they get the president, Paul Biya, who ruled forever there from 1960 to 1982? It was an appointment. How did they get Mr. Paul Biya, who became the president after that? It was an appointment made by Hijo. Was never selected by everybody. The only time they attempted to make elections was 10 years after that, 1992, when they purportedly wanted to forced to organize elections. What happened? Nifrundi won. They said no, they appointed Paul Biya to continue the job. And so can we learn something from all this? We can learn and we should learn. Except those of us who have become so educated but so hardened with crime that we cannot see anything wrong with this. A right-thinking person should see something wrong. If you don't see anything wrong with this sort of system, there is something wrong with you, not with the system. Over to you.
All right. And the second part of the voice of Ambazonia, you definitely see something wrong with that system as well. So the French Cameroon's ongoing crisis has exposed deep cracks within the country's religious leadership, particularly among some bishops who are now accused of betraying their moral responsibility in exchange for political favor and personal gain. Archbishop Andrew Nkot's involvement in the 2019 National Dialogue marked a shift towards compromise, followed by figures like Bishop Michael Bibi, who critics say have aligned with the regime instead of speaking out against military violence and oppression in Ambazonia. As church leaders enjoy financial reward and luxury, including alleged gifts like vehicles and cash, communities are left disillusioned. Parents are questioning the high cost of mission-run schools and hospitals, which no longer reflects the value of service, sacrifice, and justice once associated with faith-based institutions. Further fueling public anger is the unverified but symbolic rumor that Frank Biya, son of President Paul Biya, imported 250 luxury cars ahead of the recent election, a stark contrast to the poverty and suffering endured by ordinary citizens. These events have intensified calls for resistance against the system seen as fraudulent, manipulative, and indifferent to the plight of Ambazonians. Activists and concerned citizens are urging the public to reject participation in sham elections, refuse to legitimize tyranny, and instead uphold truth and justice both in politics and religion. The message is clear. Liberation begins not only with political awareness, but with moral clarity and the courage to challenge betrayal in every form. Let's get that.
This is the voice of Amazonia. Truth in resistance, clarity in crisis. Today is Thursday, August 28th, 2025. Today's editorial is titled From Kia to Bibi, Blood Money, Fraud, and the Rumor of 250 Cars Imported by Biya. Fellow Ambazonians, good day. The corruption surrounding La République du Cameroun's fraudulent selections runs deeper than ballot boxes and fake tallies. It extends to the very institutions meant to uphold morality and truth. 3 courageous bishops refused to bow in Yaoundé before a statue and collect blood money meant to buy silence and manipulate consciences. Yet many others, black-leg bishops and hypocrites, shamelessly defended their betrayal while boasting of rough force in their garages and dollars in their pockets. These are deceitful men, masquerading as servants of God, running private financial empires under the name of the church, while their Christians are slaughtered daily by the colonial military. It started with Archbishop Andrew Kia's prominent role in the so-called 2019 National Dialogue, a stage-managed event designed to whitewash genocide and legitimize tyranny. From there, the disease of compromise spread. Bishop Michael Bibi of the Biya diocese soon became another willing instrument of manipulation, aligning himself with the regime's agenda rather than erasing a prophetic voice for his suffering flock. What began as isolated compromise has now become a plague engulfing a large portion of the religious community. Obviously, when leadership is corrupt, only a complete shakedown will solve the problem. Instead of lifting a prophetic voice against carnage, these leaders have chosen silence and comfort. Money has become their gospel, deceit their ministry. Parents who sacrifice to keep their children in church-run schools and medical facilities are the very ones massacred by Yaoundé's forces. Yet, these bishops care little. If I could advise parents, I would tell them all institutions of learning are the same. Success depends on the determination of the child, not the false label of quality tied to mission schools. Many who never attended these costly schools excel in society today. Parents are being exploited, paying huge sums for education and healthcare while also contributing faithfully to church offerings every Sunday. Where are their benefits? The truth is, these so-called men of God are nothing more than religious politicians using faith as a cover for commerce. God does not destroy his creation. Everything he created was good. Let no man deceive you with threats that God will punish you for failing to obey their selfish doctrines. Those are lies, cheap propaganda to keep people brainwashed. Believe in the God who created you, not in the manipulations of devilish men. Fraudulent selections, bribed clergy, and the silence of hypocritical leaders all serve one purpose: to keep Ambazonians enslaved under a regime that kills its citizens while paying off black-leg collaborators. To crown the insult, it was even rumored that Biya, son of the dictator, imported 250 luxury cars before this elections, flaunting wealth in the face of a starving population. This is the grotesque theater of fraud. Blood money for bishops, cars for princes, and graves for the people. Fellow Ambazonians, let us be reminded, this is not your election. It is his election designed to legitimize tyranny. Do not participate. Do not validate fraud with your presence. It is time to open our eyes. God is present everywhere, hearing, seeing, and judging. He is not confined to a church building where corrupt bishops dictate falsehoods. Our duty is to help those in need live uprightly and resist deceit in every form. Only then will truth defeat fraud, both at the ballot box and in the pulpit. This has been the voice of Ambazonia. Truth in resistance, clarity in crisis.
Clarity in crisis. Barrister Mbeseha, 250 luxury cars in an economy such as this, in a country fighting so many things. What would you say?
What I would say is that 250 luxury cars, it's nothing new to them. You see, that's not the most important thing because, you see, those are probably bought from the treasury, the whole line on the budget that they used to steal money officially. And that's why money is not there. But 250,000 luxury cars is by every stretch of imagination unacceptable. And so, but nobody is going to ask him that question because the platform does to ask. If he asks, the justice system is so destroyed that you really want to go to jail for daring to question. But again, you will not have the proof that they will have will be the proof the treasury officially budget line for them to do that where line 14 or whatever 65. They can do all that. So those are criminals in plain daylight. Should they be held accountable? It is possible. But the important thing for us to analyze in this last segment is the bishops. The bishops and the religious. These people are supposed to be the moral background of the society. And so, but again, they've lost the whole idea of being a religious leader. They have become something else. A religious leader is supposed to be the voice of the voiceless. But they have transformed the church into the voice of the powerful. At their own level, can they emulate, even dealing with the Catholic Church, can they emulate what is happening at the top at the Vatican? Pope Francis rose to that rank, walking down the slums with the poor. He didn't rise to that place living in the comfort of a big city. No. He was walking with the homeless. The present bishop, a pope, Leo, he rose to that rank, walking down the street with the people, with the helpless, with the homeless, with the people who are destitute. Is what is going on in Cameroon? Can he be a semblance of that? No. You have just mentioned Archbishop Andrew here, which I think I want to use that example to illustrate what I'm saying. It's not for the reason they will hate him. No. These people have just lost the whole vision of a church. And then you mentioned his name in connection with the Grand National Dialogue, where he became the self-styled leader of the Anglophones. If he had used that one position to save as an Anglophone, to tell the truth, we would be talking about him now very, very differently. But he abused the thing, either because he did not know, he knew, and didn't want to tell the truth. What did he do there? From his own voice, facts don't lie. When the bishops had met of the Bamenda Archdiocese, they had met and agreed that their position would be a federation of two states. That's what he was mandated to do. We went to Yaoundé from his own words. Let Chief Mokwete told him that the Northwest cannot live with the Southwest. And then he changed. No, sir. You are not the voice of the voiceless. Why? Because a good example would have come from Archbishop Andrew here. He's from the Southwest. He was ordained priest in Boya. He's of the Boya diocese. At the time that he was ordained priest in Boya, they had a bishop called Pius Awa. He was not somebody from the Southwest. He lived as the bishop in Boya until he died. He had his Christians spread out in Boya. At the time, there was only one diocese. In Mount Faye, everywhere, with people of the Northwest, so-called Northwest and Southwest, living together. And so if Mr. Mokwete come and tell the Northwest, the Southwest, you should be the one to say no. Why? Because at that time you are talking, this is Archbishop Andrew here. He's from the people and the Southwest cannot live together. How are you living? That was political miscalculation. Southwest could not live together. How is the Bishop of Bamenda of Kumba, who's from the Northwest, serving in Kumba? How is the BB you have mentioned of East Northwest is working in Mbonge. He did not dismiss this political talk. He bought into it. He bought into it. Is this the voice of the voiceless? No. Is this what the ordinary Christian in Mbonge, in Frunkankang, in Akwaya represents in the church? No. The church is where everybody lives with the other one. And it is this, where the bishop, Archbishop from the Southwest, can live in Bamanda until he dies. Like Israel Fontaine, he came from better. Like Pius Awa is a baffled man. He was in Boya until he died. And so this is total destruction of the church, or the values of the church. The voice of the voiceless has ceased to exist. There's no Desmond Tutu anymore. The voice has become the voice of the powerful. Which is why you find the bishops go to the Tudi. And the Archbishop Andrew, whatever capacity he took there, he would tell Ngongo that the church accompanies them for peace before, during, and after the election. I'm quoting Bishop Mbaraga, one of them, in response to that. He said, look, what the Archbishop did to Ngong was so unjust. Because just a week before that, they had arrested people in the streets for just going to listen to the Constitutional Council and locked them up. Is that where you find justice? Is that not the occasion for the bishop to have stood there and said, look, if there must be justice, stop arresting people for nothing. Let people have their views. He did not do it. Did he do this? Is this calculated or by error? We don't know. But again, it tells a long story. The church has ceased to be the voice of the voiceless. It has become the voice of the powerful, which defeats the purpose of the church, which is what Dr. Mbonge is saying there. Because the church is about belief. It's about going to see the Almighty God. Heaven is not found in the cathedral. Neither is it found in this house, in the priest's house. It is found in the villages. It is found where Jesus Christ walked on foot to feed people to feed 5,000 people who had no food to eat. It is found where Christ went on foot and cured people who had no money to go to any hospital. It's not found in cars. It's not found in luxurious places. No. The church has ceased to be the voice of the voiceless. It has become the voice of the powerful. That defeats the purpose of the church. Can they come back to it? They should. And I've just said, and let me conclude with it. They emulate the example of Pope Francis, who just died. He came there as a pope, working in the slums, working for the helpless, working for the voiceless. Pope Leo, who is there now, he came there doing the same thing. He didn't come there flying in a jet plane. He came there from the jungle, working with the voiceless. And so our bishops are disappointing us. But is this general? No. What I've just quoted is Bishop Baraga. Another bishop disagreeing with what his colleagues are doing right there. So if they cannot defend you and me, who else would they defend? It is not the very people whose own bishops, their own colleagues have been killed. Bishop Bala was killed. But it is almost 7 years today. The government said investigations are going on. No results. Who will cry out for the investigation of the Bishop Bala? Who will cry out for the death of Bishop Plume other than their own bishops? Why must all weep more than the bereaved? If they can keep silent to the death of their own colleagues, that speaks a lot. And so again, the time has come that we'll have to say wrong is wrong. The church is no longer the church of the 18th century. What Jesus Christ did that they are trying to follow is written in every language. Everybody can read the Bible. The Bible is in Chinese, it's in Japanese, in every single language. So the bishops and the priests and the pastors, the only thing that they have a difference is that they are ordained to perform some ceremonies. They are not ordained to know the religion more than you and me. All of us can read it. And so it is unfortunate. We wish the church somewhere where they are going wrong, it should correct itself. And I've said it many times, let me repeat again. In Cameroon, they have 26 bishops. Not every bishop is towing the line of what is going on, brothers, bishops. Let him imitate what Bishop Blanche Obafusa, 60 miles from his 60 kilometers from Bamenda, said. He has said, take me off. If you want to kill me for this thing. Just a few weeks ago. Their colleague in Yagua said, look, even if it means giving this thing to the devil, we prefer to give it to the devil for him to fix the thing. The one in Walla said the same thing. So there are good bishops, at least who have foresight, at least who stand for the people. The power of the church is the language, it's not the gun. Because they have the power to change wrong things by just their words. If you abandon this, there's something wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with the church. Over to you.
There's actually nothing wrong with the church. Barrister Mbeseha, thank you so much for coming on tonight's Undaunted. But before you go, Mbeseha County draft on Saturday. Mbeseha draft on Saturday. And yeah, Mbeseha has been in the good books so far. What would you be expecting from Mbeseha on Saturday?
Well, what I expect from Mbeseha is as usual, just like we had in Momo. The bishop did not start with us. It has been everywhere. Mbeseha has its own problems. But Mbeseha, like any other county, you have to come together. And I agree that the revolution is bigger than any single person. Mbeseha is neighbor to Momo. Mbeseha has had its own share of detractors, knowingly or unknowingly. And so we have to overcome. That's the bottom line. We have to overcome. Because we're not going to liberate Ambazonian leaving Mbeseha alone behind. Just like we're not going to liberate Ambazonian leaving any other country behind. Yes, they've had their problems, and most counties do have. And so what we expect from them and all of us to go forward, because all Ambazonia is one. One in all, one in all. Together we shall succeed. Over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Barrister. Well, we hope to see you on Saturday when everyone comes together to draft Mbeseha on Saturday. So see you on Saturday, Barrister Mbeseha. And thank you so much for your amazing contribution today.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome. When we return after the break, we'll head into Mali to see reports revealing rising tension between the Malian troops and the Russian advisors. Right after the break. A new investigative report has uncovered growing frustration and internal discord within Mali security forces over the role and conduct of Russian military advisors operating in the country. The report, titled Mercenary Meltdown, was released on Wednesday by The Sentry, a Washington-based investigative and advocacy organization known for tracking corruption and conflicts across Africa. Drawing on interviews with current and former officials from Mali's military intelligence services and ministries of finance and mining, the report paints a picture of strained relations between Malian soldiers and their Russian counterparts, formerly associated with the Wagner Group and now rebranded as Africa's Core. According to the findings, Malian military personnel have grown increasingly resentful of the Russian advisors, accusing them of operational missteps that have led to avoidable casualties and the loss of valuable military equipment. The Russians are also criticized for allegedly disregarding Mali's established chain of command and decision-making process, exacerbating tensions within joint operations. There is a growing perception among Malian forces that the Russians act unilaterally without proper coordination, said one official quoted in the report. Said this is not a partnership. It feels like an occupation. The presence of Russian forces in Mali began in earnest in 2022 after the country's military-led government expelled French troops who had been assisting in counter-terrorism operations for nearly a decade. The shift marked a significant geopolitical realignment, with Bamako turning to Moscow for security assistance amid rising anti-Western sentiment. However, the central report suggests that the Russian presence has not translated into greater security. Islamist militants and separatist groups continue to destabilize the country, and there has been little evidence that Africa Corps has made meaningful progress in reversing Mali's deteriorated security landscape. In addition to operational concerns, the report highlights growing resentment over unequal treatment between the two forces. Russian personnel reportedly receive higher pay, are prioritized for medical evacuation during combat operation, and have access to superior equipment and resources. These disparities have further demoralized Malian troops, many of whom feel sidelined in their own country. Despite speculation that Wagner, now African Corps, was promised lucrative mining concessions as compensations for their services, the report states that no such deals have been finalized. Analysts suggest this may reflect both logistical challenges and the Malian government's internal divisions over how to manage its mineral wealth amid international scrutiny. Civil society groups and international observers have raised alarms about the opaque nature of the Russian deployment and the broader implications for democratic government and transparency in Mali. The report warns that continued friction between the two forces could weaken already fragile state institutions and deepen instability across Mali. As Mali grapples with insurgency, political uncertainty, and economic hardship, mercenary meltdown raises urgent questions about the future of its security strategy and the cost of outsourcing national defense to foreign actors with controversial track records. All right, and across the group, when we come back, we'll take a look at Trump's use of federal force as his past controversy energizes base ahead of elections. President Trump's decision to deploy federal troops to U.S. cities during times of unrest, a rise in crime, fits a reoccurring pattern in his political playbook. He often seizes on hot-button issues like public safety or immigration, where he enjoys strong support among his base, and uses those moments to assert federal authority in bold, often controversial ways. These actions aim to position him as the only leader willing to take tough action when others won't. This approach was evident during both his immigration crackdowns and later during protests and civil disturbances in cities like Portland and Chicago. In both instances, Trump used fear-based messaging to justify sweeping federal intervention, claiming they were necessary to protect Americans and restore order. But the question is, did order come in or not? It came. However, the aggressive nature of these moves, such as deploying unidentified federal agents or separating migrant families, sparked legal challenges and national backlash. Critics argue that these actions amount to federal overreach and threaten democratic norms. Civil rights groups, legal experts, and even some politicians from Trump's own party expressed concern that the president was using federal forces as a political tool. In many cases, local officials were not consulted or actively opposed the federal presence in their cities, further highlighting tensions between federal and local authorities. But despite all of these pushbacks, Trump's strategy often plays well with his core supporters. They see him as decisive, willing to bypass bureaucracy to protect the country. The media attention generated by these controversies often helps Trump dominate headlines and paint democratic leadership as weak or complicit in lawlessness, an important narrative in election years. However, while these tactics energize his base, they tend to alienate moderates and independents who see them as authoritarian or excessive. Over time, this divide has made Trump's political strategy both powerful and risky. Effective at rallying loyal voters, but just as capable of deepening national polarization and undermining broader public trust, I beg your pardon. But at the end of the day, we must agree that Trump makes the rules and it makes him stand out. All right, and that's it for tonight's Undaunted. When we return right after this short break, we'll see the stories that made it to the headlines. Tonight on Undaunted, we told you that the Amazonian State Army in their reserve ambushed the colonial army on August 25th in Biya. Also tonight, La Republic de Cameroun officer caught in a brutal scuffle with a civilian act, another act of unprofessionalism. Tonight, we told you that Cameroun's armed thugs kills community leaders in Nkot. And also Mbonge wrote a legacy of neglect, 43 years of Biya's rule and the Unholy Union impact. Tonight on the African scene, we gave you a report revealing rising tension between Malian troops and Russian advisors. And on the foreign, we told you that Trump's use of federal force is sparking controversy as well as energizing base ahead of elections. And that's it for tonight's Undaunted. On behalf of the team of technicians behind tonight's Undaunted and of course Barrister Team Base here, our in-house analyst, it's good night and God bless.